But just as I was standing there, just feeling like, oh yeah, deep bow, deep bow. And in fact, the theme of this whole, what we call a practice period that just started not so long ago, the theme is Suzuki Roshi's teachings. And sometimes it's good to keep going back to what's familiar, or keep telling stories and retelling stories, because this reminds us what the practice is, what the lineage is, how we're situated in something much bigger than our own particular ideas and stories. And I was appreciating what I've heard of Suzuki Roshi's path as quite a young man, young monk, already having the idea of coming to America to share the Dharma from Japan. And his deep, I think, believe he proposed this to his teacher, who said, no way. But he went to some trouble to learn English, and he continued practicing in Japan, in large temples and his home temple. And then in 1959, the opportunity came to come and be a priest to lead the Soto Zen temple in Japantown in San Francisco, Sokoji. And he still had this deep wish to come to America. There's a photograph of him that I revisit often in my mind, which is of him dressed in full Japanese traveling monk regalia at the Tokyo airport in 1959. But he is there with his family, his wife, Roxanne, his children, different ages of growing up. There are roses to send him off. And I know in this age of concern around cultural appropriation, what are we doing? This Japanese thing, this isn't Japan. But I keep coming back to, this was a gift. This was a real gift. The willingness to leave homeland and family to come share something, to feel like there's something here that's been developed over millennia, passed through many countries and cultures, and I believe it would be of benefit. I believe it's of such benefit that I've devoted my entire life to cultivating and caring for this. And I will leave my personal life to share it. I was reading on the website kook.com. I don't know if you know it. There was a biography of Suzuki Roshi by David Chadwick called Crooked Cucumber, which I highly recommend. And that was a name given to him by his teacher, because he felt like he was not really an upright monk, or he was having a hard time. And he said, oh, you're just a crooked cucumber. So that's where that came from. But in that, I read that when he arrived at Sokoji in San Francisco, 1959, quite an interesting place, San Francisco, in 1959. It was, not a wealthy temple, and he basically had a suitcase, and he was shown where he was going to live, which is basically a single windowless room. But he came. And the temple there was serving the Japanese community in many ways, but there was not so much zazen going on, not so much seated meditation. And he was really interested in zazen, really interested in this core practice that we call zazen, just sitting, seeing into our true nature. And so at some point, he put out a notice on the streets, I think, that said something like, sitting, I think 5 a.m. every day, people are welcome to come, basically. And people started coming. It was this time of the beats and the hippies and people coming. And at some point, the Japanese congregation was not so happy about this, kind of sharing their priest. And they said, "Are you really going to go with all these sort of ragtag hippie people and not us?" And he said, "I want to go with the people who want to sit zazen." And eventually out of that, San Francisco Zen Center was born. Thinking more about appreciating, how we get here. So many causes and conditions. You may think, "Oh, I just woke up this morning and I decided to come." Right? But what had to happen? Of course, we can never fully grasp it, but it's worth sometimes looking at least a few threads. What had to happen for us to be here today? And war is so difficult and destructive. And yet, looking back at World War II, it's interesting to see the cultural exchanges that happened there as well. Like Robert Aitken, who went on to found the Diamond Sangha in Hawaii, he had been living in Guam and was a civilian prisoner of war in Japan. And while he was there, someone gave him a book by R.H. Blythe called Zen in English Literature. And he started reading it. And then later he was interned in the same camp as R.H. Blythe. And so out of that, when he came back to the United States and ended up in Hawaii, he started a Zen school, temple. And my own personal history is intertwined with Japan in an unusual way. Some of you have heard the story, but before I was born, my mother, she had worked as a speech therapist. And she worked in the public schools in the United States and wanted to teach in Europe. And when she applied for that, they said, "It's hard to get a place in Europe. Have you thought about Asia?" No, she had not thought about Asia. They said, "Well, try Japan." She knew nothing about Japan. But she went to teach in 1958 to teach the children of army families stationed in Japan. And stayed for 2 years and traveled all through Asia with a friend when nobody was really doing that. So I think, here's my mother heading to Japan. She actually sailed out of Fort Mason on an army boat. So whenever I'm there and I look, and there she goes, under the Golden Gate Bridge, into this huge unknown, right? So she went in 1958. Suzuki Roshi, they overlap for a year. And then Suzuki Roshi comes here. It's just my own personal history. And then while she's over here, she's very curious, knows nothing about Japan. She says there aren't even guidebooks to Japan, just encyclopedia entries. Totally blown away by this incredible culture. And she starts studying Zen a little bit. She actually takes a course in Zen Buddhism taught by Jesuit priests at Sophia University. And she starts reading about all kinds of world religions and goes to India and goes to Thailand, and all of this happens. And then after a couple of years, she comes back through Los Angeles and then eventually lands back in the town she grew up in, just a small town in southeast Texas. And there is a small, somewhat chance that there's someone on Zoom listening to this now from Silsbee, Texas, right now. So, hi, you know what I'm talking about. And she redoes, when she eventually gets married, my father, who grew up there too, I'm a fifth-generation Texan, by the way, that she redoes the whole house in a Japanese style. So unusually, I grew up in a small, very conservative town in southeast Texas, Bible Belt, with books all around about Japanese and world religion and Buddhas and bodhisattvas and soji screens and everything else, eating fried rice. And she goes and she goes to all the local schools and shares her slideshows about Asia. This is a formative experience, for her and for my sister and me growing up. And after she died, I also I found this big record LP that it was, and there was Alan Watts with a bell just like the bell over there, wearing a juban, this white thing I'm wearing here, and hakama, which is like a Japanese martial art thing. And he's right by the bell, and it's him offering meditations and teachings. And I thought, I was probably listening to that when I was 2. She was playing that. So none of that really matured. She came back to the Methodist Church, and I grew up in the Methodist Church, but all of this was there. Didn't really mature till after college that I had more of an interest and actually went to Japan, and things took their course. But people ask, well, what kind? I'm interested in Buddhism, but I don't know what kind is best for me. And partially, honestly, I think it's aesthetics. That was the aesthetic that really resonated with me. So when I first landed at actually the Berkeley Zen Center in 1991, that's what felt right. And I think too about lineage. We talk a lot about lineage in Zen, passing down the teaching. They say warm hand to warm hand and carrying on the lineage. But there are different kinds of lineages. So I very much feel myself as my mother's daughter. This is my inheritance from her. Part of my lineage. I also have a 24-year-old daughter who actually grew up here, but said, I grew up at a Zen center, but I've never really done a long retreat. And so she just did an outdoor camping retreat for young people in Vermont, sponsored by the Berry Center, which I think really deeply impacted her. And when she came out, she said, I can feel how much I am your daughter. And we also come from a long line of female Methodist Sunday school teachers. My grandmother had a whole classroom in our church named after her. And I remember sometimes spending the night over there and peeking in early morning Sundays where she was in the kitchen practicing. And that goes back. So what are our different lineages that we carry, and how do we care for them? Perhaps part of the way we care for them is creating a space, a practice field like this. Of course, practice is everywhere. You don't have to come specially on Sunday to Green Gulch. That's good news. But somehow it can be a little bit easier to come into a space that's dedicated, that has the architecture and the soundscape and the words and the bowing, and every little thing is going, wake up, wake up, wake up. Do you feel it when you come in this room? Yeah. And this has been cultivated over decades. And this was a barn originally. And now how many thousands and thousands of hours of sitting here, of caring for the space, caring for the land. The other day we had our opening ceremony for the practice period, and there are about 25 people are here, 25 people or so who are here really devoting themselves, not leaving the valley for 9 whole weeks to be cared for by this practice field. That's kind of amazing, right? To take that much time and really devote oneself. But the practice period has a beginning and an ending. Zen is good at this, beginnings and endings. And by marking them, by marking a beginning and an ending, you create something. You create a structure, a field, a practice space. Physically, psychologically. And the ceremony for opening the practice period is one of my favorite ceremonies. And it seemed to be particularly beautiful this time. And we do many, many ceremonies here, in this room, as you might imagine. But in this particular ceremony, to open the practice period, everybody starts here, and then we go out. And this is early in the morning. And it was kind of damp, although beautiful starry sky, very dark still, if you can imagine here. And somehow when the air is a bit damper, you can even hear the ocean more. And so we started here and then formally exited and went out and bowed to the Kaisando, what I was just talking about, Suzuki Roshi. And then everybody, dozens of people, all processing out, going to the kitchen, where the Tenzo, the head of the kitchen, was waiting, and offered incense to the abbot Juryu, who's leading the practice period. We all bow in the kitchen. And then we go out different places, going to the office, the welcome center, the head of the welcome center offering. We go to the maintenance shop right over here. We go out all the way down to the farm, all the way down to the farm, walking in the dark, offering incense at the farm altar. There's an altar at the farm. Coming back to the garden altar. And then to the beautiful new memorial area. It's behind that side of the garden, if you haven't seen it. It's really coming together. And the Suzuki Roshi of ashes site is there, and offering there, and coming back here. So with our bodies, we're marking out, establishing not just practice here, sitting, but practice in this whole life. All of these activities, all one field of practice. And the good news is this can extend out beyond Green Gulch, but we really pay attention here and put some extra effort. So then when people leave the practice period, and we'll have a closing ceremony as well, maybe there's some of that remembrance. And it's similar at Tassajara Zen Mountain Center. How many people have been to Tassajara? I'm just curious. Yeah, a fair number. So the monastic center way down near Big Sur. Intensive practice, especially in the 6 months around the winter. And I was there, when I first went, I was there continuously pretty much for a year. So it really got in me. And one of the things, we have a bathroom altar here too, but there especially there's a bathroom right next to the zendo, and if you need to go to the bathroom, you bow at the altar, and then you go to the bathroom. And when you leave, you bow at the altar, at the bathroom, right? And when I left, we went to a Chevron. It may have been Chevron. Maybe it was 76. Maybe it was, I don't know what it was, Shell, a gas station. And the bathroom was a mess. And there was no altar. How odd. Oh, Greg, I didn't see you. Welcome. Hi. It's not that I like Linda more than you. Welcome. Good to see you. I just thought, don't you know? Don't you know that the bathroom too is a practice place? That this is your life to take care of too? And a friend who has been a Rinzai student and teacher for over 50 years who came here the other day to help the practice period work with posture, because she's also a dancer and a Pilates instructor. And we practice together. We've been practicing together now up in Sebastopol at Stone Creek Zen Center. But she said, she always heard from Rinzai that Soto Zen was really so much about shikantaza, zazen, just sitting. That was the practice. But she's now appreciating how much it's also about ceremony, about ritual. And she said, I think it's like in Rinzai, they're koans to help you bring practice into your daily life, to help you remember. And in Soto Zen, maybe it's a parallel of we have these ceremonies, we have these rituals, where we're putting our body into what we're doing and taking care of things. And my teacher, Tenshin Reb Anderson Roshi, has talked about zazen, the way we think of it conventionally, of sitting down and the posture and all of this. He refers to that as the ceremony of zazen. Right? So the thing that we can see and identify and think we do, that's a manifestation, but it's not what zazen really is. Because what zazen really is, we can't grasp. And there's no body to do it. So we have this thing that we can look at and learn how to do posture and do all of these things. But it's not the thing itself. It's so much bigger. And I know, I bet Jiryu has been focusing on zazen and posture and what the key fundamental points of zazen. And someone came and said, one of the points that he brought up in a class was also zazen is warm-hearted. Zazen is warm-hearted. And the person said, warm-hearted. I hadn't really thought about that. What is that, warm-hearted? You know, we talk about warm hand to warm hand, passing it down. But something I notice sometimes, I think, and I've seen in myself, when we sit down to practice, maybe you've noticed this, like you feel like, okay, I'm doing this, or how is my zazen, or my mind is busy, or what's going on? And it can get kind of tight. It can get kind of tight. So what happens if we take a minute, you know, just like as we're thinking about everything that it took for us to get here, and the ceremony that helped us remember where we are in a practice field. If you notice right now where you are, you can feel your own body, maybe. You can feel yourself seated on the chair. And can you feel your feet on the ground? And what happens if you expand, just for a moment, your awareness to be aware of the whole earth underneath you? And not even that we're sitting on the earth, but as our body really is the same stuff of the earth, we're an expression of that right now. So maybe you feel your body, you feel your breath. And just for a moment, could you experiment with expanding your awareness to really feel everybody in this room? That you're not sitting here by yourself. We're sitting here together. Almost like one body. Maybe even connect in yourself, what would you wish for everybody in this room? And knowing that there are probably some really good thoughts bouncing around right now, can you let yourself receive that too? And then can you expand out and be aware of the fields, just right over there, and all of the life, the plants, the animals. And be aware of the ocean. And be aware of Mill Valley right over there. Be aware of the coyotes, the great horned owls. And then maybe even zoom out for a second and feel the whole earth that we're floating around here in space. And ask yourself truly, what am I doing here? What got me here today? Whatever that is, you can trust it with your life. It's worth your whole life. And each person here in some way touched into that to be here today. This is powerful. This is the true business of a human life. There is nothing else to do. You have found it. There's a phrase that says, "Now you have it, so keep it well." So it's up to you in the time you have alive on this earth in this form. How do you keep it well? There are many different ways. How do you remember? You're remembering right now. What will help you keep remembering? Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Who do you want around you? How do you want to serve with your life to help other people remember? This is what we're up to around here. We are so fortunate. And the world needs this so. So perhaps take just a moment now and ask yourself, what is it about what I'm feeling right now that I want to remember? And what will help me remember? Thank you very much. So notice what this transition is like right now. So it's like, okay, done with the talk. What happens next? Do we get the muffins? Oh, Q&A first. Oh, okay. But that transition of, all right, we were in this interior inquiry, and now we're opening up a little bit more, can move a little bit more. We might talk back and forth. Eventually you might go outside. But can you remember? Have you already forgotten? Yeah? Can you remember and still talk? Can you remember and still think, oh wait, what am I doing later this afternoon? Remember, oh wait, I really need to go to the bathroom. Can I go now or not? Right. So it takes a little more practice, which is why we keep simplifying the field and coming and sitting down and getting everything really quiet. Just, oh right, I remember. Okay, now I can get up and, oh yes, yeah. Talking, it's also mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of speech, mindfulness, be aware and present in this dynamic human life too. So this is a chance to explore a little verbally together if we feel like it. So if anyone has anything they would like to offer, ask, you're most welcome to.
Hold the microphone close.
Ice cream cone.
Ice cream cone.
Thank you very much for the great talk. My name is Fariba, and I appreciate your wisdom, sharing your wisdom. In this world, there's a lot of noise.
Noise, you said?
Noise. Mm-hmm. That I feel like we get bombarded with it.
Yeah.
What is your recommendation for how to deal with dampening the noise so that you can be more mindful of your activities, your practice, and yourself? Thank you.
My recommendation would to be find ways to be proactive in creating spaces that have a buffer from that noise and put it into some kind of regular routine for yourself. And so I've shared it with different people. One of my particular practices is I will not read the news until after noon. That is hugely helpful for me. And so that's a kind of noise, right? I do want to read the news, I do want to stay connected, but I notice if I jump to that first, it just, all of these different things, you know, from wars to recipes I want to do, like it just clutters my head, and I have only a little bit left for the things I really want to think about, right? Even on a subconscious level. So I give myself a space, a mental space, right? Having, say, a morning practice, again, where you're not turning stuff on. And throughout traditions, people have practiced in the early morning because that is a time in general, even in pre-modern times, of less noise. Right? There's more space. Going into nature, turn off your phone. Go for a walk. Maybe you do that once a week. Right? So what are the buffer spaces to give yourself that, you know, silence, but also, like, if you're in nature, it's not totally silent, but you can listen on a different level, you know, or being with people that you care about, and again, finding ways that there's not distraction, so you can really hear each other. So I had heard that birds actually, during COVID, when everything got really quiet, right, that bird song had gotten sort of louder and simpler because they have to kind of shout to be heard over the noise. Literally, it's a whole thing, noise pollution. And in COVID, they didn't have to be as loud, and their songs got more complex again, you know. So what are we missing if we're shouting and simpler because we're just trying to be heard all the time? What happens if we create that space? So I would suggest, and you can try things. Okay, this month I'm going to try this. Does that work? But I feel like once people kind of get a feel for what's possible, it can help. How does any of that resonate for you? Okay, thank you. I think this is important, actually. You know, we need to, there's so much coming at us, trying to hit, I mean, this is not new, but impulses and clutter, and that to keep some spaciousness of mind and be able to do deep creative thinking. The world needs this from humans right now. Thank you for your question. Other thoughts?
A couple in the back.
Hey, Sam.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Really appreciated your comments about considering how this comes to us.
Yeah.
And also, just what a gift it is, the labors that make it possible, the myriad factors that are unknowable. But particularly I wanted to just give thanks to you considering our own personal lineage, and how valuable it is to remember how we got here. And I love that line about Elizabeth recognizing her place. So thank you for encouraging us to recognize our place.
Thank you. Thank you for coming back. And there is a kind of, even if you don't see somebody for decades, there's a kind of intimacy in this practice when you sit together and you practice together, that there's a resonance, over time that doesn't go away. Thank you. See a couple of cams back there.
Sorry. Hi. Thank you so much for your talk. I'm so grateful to be here, and yet my heart, I think like so many, is really broken for what's been happening in our world. And I know that a lot of faith leaders have been stepping up and attending vigils and protests. And I am just wondering if Green Gulch and the Zen Center is engaging in any of the vigils to protect the immigrants, and if there is some way as a community member that we could join with any of the community here that might be willing to do that. Because I want to do it, but I don't want to do it alone. Thank you.
I don't know what is happening. Do you know what's happening, Jerry-san? So I'm hearing, I think there's nothing official has come together, but I think finding like-minded people connected also with Zen practice, that there can be things can arise from that. Yeah. There's someone here in the middle.
Hi. Thank you so much for, very nice talk. Today is my first day here, and actually I'm looking for some answers to find out if you lose someone that is very dear to you, how you can accept the fact, how you can accept him, gone and live with it. And it's very difficult for me. Sometimes, I was thinking that after 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year, I get better. But it doesn't happen, and I feel so guilty to let him go, to not to think about him, not to live with him, and it gives me guilt. And I want to, give myself some space, but I can't do it. And I need some help to find out how I can, live with myself without being so attached to someone that is not here any longer.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very sorry for your loss. And it's not an easy answer, but first I would offer to really let yourself feel the feelings you're feeling, the whole range of them. And when the person comes to mind, to truly connect with your heart and what you wish for them. And it may be there's a way for them to, in a sense, be with you, even as you continue on in your life. Sometimes connecting with what they might wish for you, if they could see you now. I actually am going to mention an event coming because I think it would be meaningful for you, and everyone is invited. But on next Sunday afternoon, there's an event with Frank Ostaseski, who is a founder of the Zen Hospice Project and has a beautiful book called The 5 Invitations, which I also recommend, who will be teaching with Wendy Johnson, who is a longtime resident here at Green Gulch and a dear friend, and we will be doing when looking at death and how that helps us live more fully. So it's through Stone Creek Zen Center, and it's in Santa Rosa, but I think it will be and we're going to have an altar, so I think it will be a beautiful event. So if you are interested in that, you can look at the Stone Creek Zen Center website and come to that, because I think it's a chance to bring practice and heartfulness to this loss. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Meg.
Hi, Parsa.
You mentioned ceremonies and how we embed it into our daily practice. What I'm wondering is, how do you know when it's time to sit and when it's time to get up and do something? Someone asked about political presence in a way, or civil presence. but like even in a broader sense in life, like how does Zen answer? How long do you sit?
I feel like I should write out a schedule and say, for you, Parsa, you should sit this time. No, it's, we go through waves, we go through waves and times, and I think in general having a daily sitting practice, even if you're really active in the world, will help you come back to a kind of grounding that makes whatever you're doing in the world, whether it's, political activism or jobs or family or whatever it is, gives that a kind of frame, just like a practice frame, just like what we were talking about. And there may be times in life when one is more out and active and creative, and times when one is going to the monastery, for example, and really simplifying. The benefit of taking the time to really settle in, it shifts. I'm actually going to read something from this wonderful book, Becoming Yourself, Teachings on the Zen Way of Life, Shunryu Suzuki, recently brought to life by Abbot Juryu's efforts, so I highly recommend this. But I'll just read the whole paragraph. In your everyday practice, do you develop your idea of yourself, or do you develop Buddha mind? We should always put the Buddha mind first and the self next. We should always follow Buddha mind. To follow Buddha mind, it is necessary to realize what Buddha mind is. The way to realize Buddha mind is zazen practice. Through zazen practice, you will intuitively know what Buddha mind is, because your selfish ideas or your small self will become smaller. By continuing zazen practice, you will get more and more accustomed to this intuitive knowledge of Buddha mind. The more you continue to practice, the smaller your small self becomes. Big self takes over your small self. So your activity in the world coming from big self versus the fears and reactivity of small self, it's going to be very different. And sometimes it takes an intensive, I'm going to put the world aside, what we call the world aside for a moment here, and really connect with that. Get really grounded in that. And then as you come out, there's a different way of engaging, and people will pick that up from you. You can calm down a whole situation by just being present, but that takes practice. That kind of immersive practice to fully be there. And it's a judgment call of when is in, when is out, when is activity, when is stillness. It's dynamic. Yeah, thank you. Someone up here in the front. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One thing that I've been thinking about a lot is when my kids were smaller, we had a lot of ceremonies and practices that felt really wholesome. We went for hikes and we had very simple living.
Yeah.
As they get older, the types of ceremonies that everybody else engages in are a lot more fun. Football games and sleepovers and parties.
Yeah.
And I would like to help to bind together our community and make it something that the kids want to continue to enter into, even when the draw is really strong from the really fun activities. And the ceremonies around kind of the social gatherings that are just a lot more sparkly, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have any advice for that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, acknowledging, appreciating as kids move into a certain level of age and development, they're intensely social. That's really important for them to connect with peers and be all of that. And so, of course, there's that. Yeah. But similarly to the question about noise and time, like, are there family rituals that you have? Or someone I know, he's very, very busy, And this day of the week might not work for you, but generally Saturdays have been kind of family time. And I don't know how it is as his kids got bigger, but a certain time, like, oh, this is when we're together as a family, or this weekend every spring we do this, or that, like, having that kind of grounding ritual and structure, even if it's not all the time or not as much maybe as it used to be, like, oh, just be little again, that is there a way, and maybe it's a discussion, or you start out like, let's try this, and gradually build that. What do you think? Okay, we'll try it. Good luck.
More for the community, to kind of invite their community in.
Oh.
We already do a lot of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, maybe talk to them and get their ideas. I don't know. Yeah, thank you.
Got one online. Natalie says, what do you do when there is someone you care about struggling and they push you away? Do you move on? I'm struggling with the path to choose. Lots of thoughts about the future.
Could you read the first part again?
Someone you care about is struggling and they push you away. What do you do?
I think you stay as present as you can and let them know that you're still there if they need something. And sometimes you can't force something, but continuing to let them know or give them signals or ask what would be helpful, or if it's a community situation with friends, maybe there are a few friends coming together to offer support. That's what I would say. And I would also say just be aware of your own feelings and whatever hurt feelings you might have of being pushed away, and noticing how that's coming in there too, and what you would wish for them.
She has a follow-up.
Okay.
She says, how do I love someone who I feel is pushing me away?
There's, there are different kinds of avenues of love, but can you love someone even if they're pushing you away? Or if you can imagine, your own child being upset or saying, I need to get away from you, or doing difficult things, there's this sense of you love them anyway. Right? Even if you never see them again, even if you decide the relationship isn't continuing, just as another human being, can you cultivate that? But at the same time, not bulldozing through your own feelings of loss and pain too. Right? So an unconditional love, but then also knowing, honoring your own feelings as well. I think we have maybe one more in the very, very back, and then maybe that's the last one. Is that Sana?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Meg. So
Hi,
good to see you. Beautiful talk. Thank you. There was some mention of who you surround yourself with and how coming to a place like Green Gulch can bring a little bit more ease into your practice.
Yeah.
And my question is, as someone who receives a lot of influence from her surroundings, and I know
Say it again.
as someone who receives a lot of influence from the people around her, and I know I'm not the only one, I often wonder if true practice for me looks like getting so much better that I'm not affected so much by all sorts of energies or types of conversation that might happen around me. Someone spoke of like the noise. Or is it that I do need to get more selective and smarter around where I put myself? What are the types of surroundings that I am? Because sometimes that feels like I'm cheating, but I'm not sure. Maybe that is the answer. So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think, thank you for the question. I think as you become more grounded and settled in yourself, then you are able to be in different kinds of situations and people and hold that clarity. At the same time, in Buddhism they talk about three treasures: Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And it's always struck me that Sangha is right up there with Buddha and Dharma, the sense of people of like mind coming together to practice and support each other. So my guess, my recommendation would be to have a balance. And I would not say it's cheating, to come and to be. We are very, very influenced, just by the people we're with and how they are and the things we're talking about. And so it's really, how can that be nourishing and supportive for you to be in a certain social situation that you feel is wholesome and helpful in that way. But then also, as you expand out, you can take that grounding further out as well. It's probably a weaving in and out would be my thought.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming today. That's great. We'll wait for the Ino to get back to the bell so we can chant. May our intention equally extend to every being and place with the true